The age-old question, to 270 or not to 270? Let's talk hinges. So from Mercedes, you get two options for hinges. You either get the 270-degree hinges. What that means is this rear door is going to open 270 degrees. So follow this one, this is a 270. It's gonna open up to 90, 180, 270. You'll see this in a lot of vans, and you'll see a lot of people replacing them with 180-degree hinges. So what's the reasoning for that? If we come over to this van right here, you're gonna see we have all sorts of accessories on the back of the van. The 180 hinges are designed a little bit different, which actually gives us attachment points that we can configure onto. So one, we have a place to mount things, and two, now that we have all these accessories on the back of the van, we don't want that 270-degree swing, otherwise all of those things we just put on there are now smashing into the side of our van. So this one swings out, stops right there at that 180 degrees. This is actually just a little bit less because we have a stopper on there to give you a little more breathing room, depending on if you have bikes and things like that on there. So again, we're opening now, instead of going that 270 degrees, we're opening to just under 180 degrees and stopping so that all those accessories aren't denting up the side of your van. To swap out those hinges, we do have an easy solution here where we can just replace those 270-degree hinges with the OEM 180 hinges. So what we're going to do for this is we're actually going to unbolt these one at a time, and then we're going to pop these ones on. To do that, what you're going to need is a T45 Torx bit, a 17mm socket, and this is the tricky one right here. It's an E12, which is an external star bit. You can get away with doing this without the external star, and I'll actually show you here where this one's for. You can use a 12-point, you can use a 12-millimeter to get onto these, but definitely better if you have this E12 bit. And that's gonna pop onto these guys right here. Besides those sockets, we're gonna need a ratchet to be able to turn them, or impact driver. For this one, I always prefer to use an impact driver. The big thing with that is you do need to be really careful not to strip the bolts in this. And when we get in there, I'm gonna show you how that works. You wanna make sure that when you put these in, you start it by hand, because if you do cross thread these bolts, and they are easy to cross thread, it is a nightmare to replace. So make sure you don't cross thread it, but we're gonna show you how to do that. So to do this, what we wanna do is we want to do one hinge at a time. The only concern that you're gonna have while doing this, as Mercedes, when they got the van for you, they spent a lot of time adjusting this door to make sure that everything seals perfectly. So we wanna try to maintain that as best as possible. If you don't, not a huge deal. We're gonna show you how to adjust and get things set with that in the event it's not perfect, but I like to do one at a time, try to get my hinges in as close a position as to where they were when it came from the factory. And this is one we're gonna need a friend. So we've got our friend now. Caden's gonna come help us out with this job. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do one hinge at a time. So we're gonna start out, we're gonna do the top one. What I'm gonna have Caden do is actually hold the door while it's open. I'm gonna pull the top hinge off. We're gonna replace it with this one. So as he's doing this, he's not gonna actually have to carry all the way to the door. What he's trying to do is just prevent it from tipping over. We're gonna make sure there's always one hinge attached, but we don't wanna have that whole door pivoting off of that single hinge. So he's just helping keep it in place and keeping it torqued, but he's not actually gonna have to hold the whole door. All right, so to get this kicked off, we're gonna start out with this right here. This is our 17mm one. Pop it on. Now we're gonna go to these ones. I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. Just getting these on, finger tight. Now what we're gonna have to do is Caden's actually gonna pivot this door in so that I'm able to line up these holes right here with the top of the bracket right here. So Caden, if you'll start closing that door. There we go. Same thing, we're hand tightening these. All right, perfect. Let's just tighten up one of these bolts. All right, that's just gonna help Caden out. Now we're gonna do, we have that loose on there, same thing. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take the bottom one out. Caden, again, has this bracket up here to support it on, so he doesn't have to support the entire door, but this one's gonna be a little bit harder. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, All right, if you can kind of swing out just a little bit, there we go. All right. Putting these in finger tight. A little more, a little more. Now everything's in. So what I'm gonna try to do is get these as close to the factory position as possible. You see how this one needs to come up a little bit? Okay, if you can just lift up a bit for me. Perfect, now we're gonna tighten that in. There it is. Bottom ones, this looks pretty close. Can we open a little more? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Caden, you're good? All right, so now everything's tightened on there. What we want to make sure is that our door is still located in the right spot. So what I'm gonna do is close this really slowly and just make sure that this little piece right here is gonna line up with this. I'm gonna make sure that the top latch is gonna line up with that. So we're just closing this nice and slow. All right, there we go. Something's not quite lining up right. So now we need to see what we need to adjust with our hinges. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump in here, have Caden close it, and I'm gonna look and see what needs to be adjusted. Not too far off. The bottom needs to come this way. Yeah, I think this way. All right, so looking at that, we noticed that the bottom, I was seeing light coming through here, so actually the whole bottom of this needs to kick over in this direction. So that's what we're gonna adjust. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna loosen these bottom ones up. Okay, good. Pretty good. All right. So with some minor adjustments, we were able to get it in a place where it's still closing well. So now I'm going to tighten up all the rest of the bolts, and then we're done with our hinge swap. And now, goodbye 270 hinges. Hello 180 hinges.